Prime Minister Narendra Modi today addressed the Indian diaspora in Moscow, Russia, thanking them for their warm reception, reminding that July 9th marks the month of Modi 3.0. Prime Minister Modi said he has taken an oath to work 3 times faster with 3 times more strength in his third term.
अपने तीसरे टर्म में मैं 3 गुनी ताकत से काम करूंगा। और ये भी एक संयोग है कि सरकार के कई लक्ष्यों में भी 3 का अंक छाया हुआ है। सरकार का लक्ष्य है तीसरे टर्म में भारत को दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी इकोनॉमी बनाना। सरकार का लक्ष्य है तीसरे टर्म में गरीबों के लिए 3 करोड़ आवास बनाना, 3 करोड़ घर बनाना। सरकार का लक्ष्य है तीसरे टर्म में 3 करोड़ लखपति दीदी बनाना।
Prime Minister Modi said the entire world is amazed looking at the speed of development India has acquired in the last 10 years. He added that India is changing because India believes in the abilities of its 140 crore citizens.
आपने भी हाल में T20 वर्ल्ड कप में और मुझे पक्का विश्वास है यहां भी आपने उस विक्ट्री को सेलिब्रेट किया ही होगा। इस बार पेरिस ओलंपिक में भी भारत की तरफ से एक शानदार टीम भेजी जा रही है। आप देखिएगा पूरी टीम, सारे एथलीट्स कैसे अपना दम दिखाएंगे। भारत की युवा शक्ति का यही आत्मविश्वास भारत की असली पूंजी है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will co-chair the 22nd annual summit between India and Russia with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow today. The summit will provide an opportunity for both leaders to review the full spectrum of bilateral issues, including defense, trade, investment, energy cooperation, science and technology, education, culture, and people-to-people exchanges. They will also share perspectives on regional and global developments of mutual interest. The Prime Minister will also have a restricted one-on-one meeting at the Kremlin with President Putin, which will set the stage for delegation-level talks. Earlier on Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin hosted a private dinner for Prime Minister Narendra Modi at his country home on the outskirts of Moscow. Both the leaders got an opportunity, away from the public glare, to focus on more sensitive issues on the agenda. In a grand gesture, Moscow's Ostakino Tower, the tallest structure in Europe, was lit up with colors of India's national flag on Monday night. It coincided with arrival of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Russia. And DD India correspondent Jessica Taneja joins us live from Moscow on phone line. Jessica, let's talk about Prime Minister Modi's engagements ahead. All eyes on the bilateral talks in Russia's highest civilian honor for PM.
That's correct, Shubhendu. Quite an action-packed day. While I'm here at the Rosatom exhibition, where the Prime Minister will be accompanied by Russian President Vladimir Putin, quite a significant moment for the two leaders as well, because if you know, the cooperation in nuclear energy between the two nations goes back to the 1950s. In fact, precisely 1955, where the former Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru had visited here, cementing the cooperation between the two in the nuclear energy field. And looking at the current scenario, if you see, India and Russia have collaborated in this field quite extensively. Two nuclear power plants in Kundakalam are already in operation. There are talks of starting the sixth and the seventh plant, the third and the fourth plant, as well. So expect this visit to bring in a lot of discussion, not only in the defense and energy trade, but also diversifying economic trade. Now, that has been the agenda this time around in this visit, because of the trade imbalance that we've seen due to the discounted Russian crude that India has been importing for the last 3 years, saving to the tune of $13 billion worth of crude imports, and that has been a crucial achievement for India as well, looking at how expensive crude is and how it has been able to energize the Indian economy so well over the years, and how India in particular has benefited across sectors because of that.
And Jessica, earlier today, Prime Minister Modi shared the India success story with members of the Indian diaspora. How was their response?
Well, the diaspora was quite excited. I met with a lot of them yesterday. In fact, hundreds of them were gathered around the streets outside the hotel where the Prime Minister arrived in Moscow. They were enthusiastic and were hopeful of addressing their concerns as well as greeting the Prime Minister, most of them awaiting his arrival for many days to come. And living here for the last 30, 40 years, their expectations, even from the business community who were here, they had some suggestions as well to make to the Prime Minister in order to include their concerns and their issues in addressing, their and looking at their ideas in particular, and how trade ties between the two countries can be enhanced in terms of the business-to-business ties, looking at particular sectors of trade, which include textiles, fertilizers, pharmaceuticals is one of the stronger ones that also needs to be energized and enhanced further. So the focus will be on the economic agenda, and that is something the diaspora community is looking forward to, particularly the business community that wants all of these things to be incorporated. Also ironing out the payment system between rupee and ruble, something which is crucial and will be discussed as well, on how the banking sector can work to address this particular mechanism.
Right. Jessica, thanks very much for getting us those updates from Moscow. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also visit Austria's capital, Vienna, after his Russia visit. The last time an Indian Prime Minister went to Austria was over 40 years ago, although India and Austria have been friends for 75 years. With extensive trade, tech, sustainable development and people-to-people ties, Prime Minister will also be interacting with some 31,000 strong Indian diaspora in Austria to further strengthen relations with the key European nation. DD India's Gautam Roy gets us more from Vienna.
India-Austria ties go back 75 years. They both share common values such as democratic principles and pluralism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Austria on Tuesday and Wednesday, where he'll call on President Alexander von der Bellen and hold delegation-level talks with his counterpart, Federal Chancellor Karl Nehammer. In his departure statement, the PM said, "I look forward to my discussions to take our partnership to even greater heights in new and emerging areas of innovation, technology and sustainable development, among others. Together with the Austrian Chancellor, I look forward to exchanging views with business leaders from both sides to explore mutually beneficial trade and investment opportunities." Austria has a multicultural society with over 31,000 strong Indian diaspora. The PM will also be interacting with them during his visit, which is a much-awaited event for the members of the Indian community.
Everyone is looking forward to meet Prime Minister Modi ji, and it's after a long time that an Indian Prime Minister is coming to Austria, and he has done a lot for the foreign politics and helped a lot for the economic growth and everything. So everyone is looking forward.
Indian diaspora, especially the students and researchers, the subgroup I belong to is very excited for Prime Minister Modi's visit to Austria. We are looking forward to it, and I am pretty much excited to see how the socio-economical and cultural aspects play forward from this point onwards.
India and Austria have extensive relations from infrastructure, technology to sustainable development. Trade is well balanced, around $3 billion each year. Indian exports to Austria stand at $1.52 billion. Imports from Austria stand at $1.41 billion. Indian investments in Austria amount to over $1 billion. Austrian investments in India are at over $800 million. Austria offers opportunities for collaboration in multiple fields, ranging from infrastructure, renewable energy to startups. India and Austria Startup Bridge was launched in February 2024. 20 plus Indian startups went to Austria in June this year to participate in a startup event. India and Austria have also inked a landmark comprehensive migration and mobility agreement in May 2024. India and Austria have been friends for 75 years, and a gap of over 40 years will be filled by the visit of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Austria and when these two leaders meet. There's a 31,000 strong Indian community as well who've been looking forward to interact and meet the Prime Minister, and all these events will take the relationship between India and Austria forward into the future, be it in trade, tech or sustainable development. With Cabinet President Pramod Negi, Gautam Roy in Vienna, Austria for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. UK's Parliament reconvenes later on Tuesday for the first time since last week's election. Israel opposition offers support to Netanyahu if he signs ceasefire.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. The NATO summit starts in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday with heads of state from 32 member nations and other partners gathering to discuss defense strategy ahead. It's a historic summit, 75 years since the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, was formed in the aftermath of the World War II. The war in Ukraine is top of the agenda with wider threat of Russia as it gets more support from the likes of China and North Korea, being of increasing concern. DD India's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
The fighting rages on in Ukraine 2.5 years since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. A war that's now killed hundreds of thousands of people and created wider insecurity. As the leaders of 32 NATO countries and their partners meet in the US capital, Ukraine continues to push for membership.
The alliance will agree on a bridge to membership for Ukraine into NATO. What this means is that Ukraine will continue making the reforms that it needs to make and that it is committed to make as part of its annual plan with NATO, as well as with other agreements, and that in that context we see its movement toward the alliance as is irreversible, effectively.
US officials have said there will be sessions with partners Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand to discuss the support Russia gets from Iran, North Korea and China.
Some think that NATO should have a presence in the Indo-Pacific to really push back against Chinese aggression and Chinese expansionism, while some people think that NATO should focus closer to home, get the Russia threat right first, figure out how to not just spend more on defense, but spend in a way that is efficient and in a way that allows for more continuity between various regions within the NATO alliance.
There is widespread understanding that Ukraine does need more support, additional air defences, as well as billions of dollars in weapons already sent by individual NATO countries. On Tuesday evening, NATO members will gather at a commemoration event to mark 75 years since the end of World War II and 12 allies signing a transatlantic agreement.
We will now proceed to the signing of the North Atlantic Treaty.
Well, during the summit, NATO will officially welcome Sweden as its newest member, bringing their total numbers to 32. At least 23 of those members have already committed at least 2% of their GDP on defence. That's a huge increase from previous years and a show of a united front against Russia's progression. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Russia on a two-day visit. We are getting some visuals from Russia, those visuals coming in from Moscow. Prime Minister Narendra Modi engaging with the performers at the diaspora event. There he participated. Prime Minister engaging with members of the Indian diaspora, also of Russian descent, who participated in cultural programs to welcome Prime Minister. Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday evening reached Moscow, Russia. A short while ago, Prime Minister addressed a diaspora event. These visuals that came in a short while ago, Prime Minister engaging with members of the Indian diaspora and also of Russian descent, all decked up in Indian cultural costumes, Indian traditional dance costumes. Prime Minister engaging there and interacting with the special artist who put up a show to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Those visuals came in a short while ago. Moving on, as the US President Joe Biden is going to host NATO summit to mark his 75th anniversary in Washington, D.C. From July 9 to 11th, a White House spokesperson said NATO members are assured of leadership of Biden and his seriousness about the grouping.
I think the question presupposes the notion that they need to be reassured of American leadership and President Biden's commitment, and I don't believe that's the case. We're not picking up any signs of that from our allies at all, quite the contrary. The conversations that we're having with them in advance, they're excited about this summit, they're excited about the possibilities and the things that we're going to be doing together, specifically to help Ukraine.
Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden is under severe scrutiny over his physical and mental health. This is after the disastrous presidential debate with Republican rival Donald Trump. A growing number of Democrats in the US Congress are calling on Biden to end his re-election bid. Meanwhile, Biden, dismissing the concerns, has vowed to run in the race till the end. He stood firm and told congressional Democrats in a letter on Monday that he would continue his election bid. And First Lady Dr. Jill Biden started off campaign for her husband and Democrat Joe Biden on Monday in North Carolina, endorsing his second term. She declared she's all in for her husband.
For all the talk out there about this race, Joe has made it clear that he's all in. Thank you. Thank you. That's the decision that he's made. And just as he has always supported my career, I am all in too. I know you are too, or you wouldn't be here today. And with 4 more years, Joe will continue to fight for you, the military community that we are humbled and proud to call our own.
In an update from Britain, following the Conservative Party's historic defeat in the general elections, opposition leader Rishi Sunak introduced his interim shadow cabinet. Chris Philip has been decided as the shadow leader of the House of Commons, taking over from Penny Mordaunt, who was one of the senior lawmakers to have lost their seats, while Jeremy Hunt continues with the finance brief and former Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden becomes Deputy Leader of the opposition. The UK's Parliament reconvenes later on Tuesday for the first time since last week's election. Labour Party won a landslide majority, will soon set out its legislative plans. DD India's Ollie Barrett reports from London.
What happens as Parliament reconvenes after the election is that both chambers of the Parliament gather in the House of Lords at first for what's called a Royal Commission from the King, which is effectively an order to hold a new Parliament. Then the House of Commons proceeds to elect a new Speaker for the upcoming Parliament. And then we also have oath-taking for members of the House of Lords, the Upper Chamber and the House of Commons as well through Tuesday and Wednesday. It's not till the 17th of July that we get the official state opening of Parliament. That's when you get the so-called King's Speech, which sets out the government's legislative agenda for the upcoming parliamentary session. The other thing that's going on this week, and has been for a couple of days and will continue for several more days, is the onboarding of hundreds of new MPs who are at Westminster for the first time ever. They get a buddy who tells them exactly how Parliament works, gets to show them round, tells them where they can find food and drink and all sorts of other secrets about life at Westminster. There are, as I say, hundreds of new MPs at Parliament this time around, partly because of the landslide victory for the Labour Party, which is now a Labour government, but also because there were dozens of MPs who stepped aside and didn't contest the last general election last week. So a busy day at Parliament ahead. Reporting for DD India.
And a surprise result in France's parliamentary elections has kept the country waiting for a new government, with no party securing a majority. It's a loss for President Macron's party, Renaissance, but also a loss for the predicted winner, the far-right National Rally. DD India's Stuart Smith has more from Paris.
The far-right National Rally Party says it was defeated by an unnatural political alliance, a bloc of centrists with a bloc of left-wingers working together to try to make sure that a far-right government didn't make it into power. That is what has happened, and it seems to have worked on Monday. No right-wing government for France, but also no potential for any other government. The left bloc and centre bloc that worked together in this election to make sure the far right did not make it into power are also diametrically opposed on so many issues. The left-wingers, for example, would entirely revoke the centrist policies related to tax reform that Emmanuel Macron has pushed through with his party over the last 7 years. So now coalition talks are beginning, but with no clear sense how on earth there can be a path here to shared government, something which is not normal in France, while the Olympics take place, an event of international importance, and while these coalition talks continue. The far right says it's not out. National Rally says this is just them getting ready for 2027 when they'll have a go at the presidential election. And indeed, they doubled the number of seats despite the centrists and the left-wingers for working together to prevent their victory. So by no means has that party gone away. But in the meantime, France is left without a government, and it does mean that there will be weeks and months of talks to try to create one. Stuart Smith in France, reporting for DD India.
Updates on Israel-Hamas conflict now. Hamas chief on Monday said that Israel's latest operation in Gaza could jeopardize ceasefire talks. The Israeli army released a video on Monday showing ground forces operating in Gaza. The Israeli military says it had been mounting an operation against terror infrastructure in Gaza and that it had taken out action more than 30 terrorists who pose a threat to the Israeli troops. Israeli military later issued new evacuation orders for Gaza city areas of Sabra Rimal, Tel al-Hawa, Daraj, telling people to head to Deir al-Bala in central Gaza. Israel's latest retaliations come as Egypt, Qatar and United States stepped up efforts to mediate a ceasefire agreement between Israel and the Hamas. Meanwhile, United States on Monday said senior U.S. officials are in Cairo for talks to achieve a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said the talks have resumed, but gaps still remain between the two sides.
We have a team in Cairo right now that includes Brett McGurk and the director of the CIA. They're meeting with their Egyptian, Israeli, and Jordanian counterparts, and there'll be follow-on discussions after that over the next few days. Look, we've been working this very, very hard, and there are still some gaps that remain in the two sides and the positions. The president believes wholeheartedly that this ceasefire proposal that we are trying to get done will make a big difference in terms of not only temporarily ceasing hostilities, but potentially giving us an opening to end this conflict.
In other updates, Israel's opposition leader Yair Lapid has promised to support Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in parliament. At a meeting of his parliamentary faction, Lapid reiterated his offer to provide PM Netanyahu a political safety net in order to advance a potential hostage deal despite the opposition of the premier far-right allies. Lapid's pledge aims to ensure the release of Israeli hostages and maintain governmental stability despite his political differences with Netanyahu. Head of the Labour Party, Yair Golan, also said he would back Netanyahu on a deal to release the hostages. Let's now take a look at what else is making news around the world. Turkey's first domestically made communication satellite, Turksat 6A, was launched by SpaceX on Monday. Launched from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, the satellite aims to improve television broadcasting needs of the country. A Philippine ship illegally anchored at Renai Jiao in South China Sea is being blamed for harming the coral reefs in the area. Beached since 1999, the ship is being called as the primary polluter in the area. The premiere of the much-awaited movie Fly Me to the Moon was held in New York on Monday. The film, which stars actor Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum in lead roles, is set to release on 12 July. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. We'll get you an update on the monsoons and IMD alerts and situation in Assam and Maharashtra.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. A quick recap of the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses Indian diaspora in Moscow, reiterates commitment to make India third largest economy in the world in his third term. Prime Minister Modi to hold talks with President Putin on the entire spectrum of bilateral issues, to visit Rosatom Pavilion in Moscow to see Russia's nuclear tech advancements. NATO summit to begin in Washington, D.C. with heads of state from 32 member nations. Later today, Ukraine conflict tops the agenda. And to talk about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Russia, joining me is Ambassador Manjeev Puri, former senior diplomat. Good afternoon and welcome, Ambassador Puri. Now, in a short while from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Putin are expected to hold talks. Now, this annual summit, India-Russia annual summit, is happening with the gap of about 3 years. How much has geopolitics transformed since then?
Shubhendu, it's changed a lot. And of course, your own report, when you mentioned the Ukraine conflict, yes. I mean, that's one of them. What's happening in Gaza is the other thing. Let's also remember several other things which is on the part of India, and India coming into its own on the global stage. We've become the largest country in the world. We're the 5th largest economy. And as the Prime Minister said to the Indian diaspora, there is no way that we won't be the 3rd largest economy in the world in the coming years. What a change. And this is about India and its place in the global economy. Of course, as far as the world is concerned, we went through COVID. There have been other sets of issues too. A changing world order, if I may say so. And India certainly is finding its place in that. Without doubt, there is this issue of China becoming the 2nd largest economy and going places. But all in all, the last 3 years have seen a lot happening on the global front.
Ambassador Puri, what do you recognize as the issues that would be in focus when the leaders talk? Energy relationship, we understand, has been of great importance, whether it's oil imports from Russia to India or the engagement in nuclear advancements.
Shubhendu, I have little doubt that bilateral issues will be certainly very important, but so will be global issues and regional issues. On the bilateral issues, without any doubt, issues regarding defense cooperation, strengthening it further, issues regarding nuclear cooperation, strengthening that, finding ways of doing more things. And let me say something, doing things in a manner which add to global good. The Honorable Prime Minister went and saw the Russian atomic exhibition. Now, you know, as we talk in terms of climate change, and that's the big buzzword in the world, we are talking in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, moving away from fossil fuels and nuclear energy, which, you know, found itself tainted the last decades, etc., needs to find a way to come back. The Russians are leaders, so are we doing a lot. And this has been a major area of our cooperation. So I hope to see, and I am quite sure, this will be fairly important in terms of our cooperation and in terms of what we'll be discussing. Other than that, of course, without any doubt, global issues, there is no way that there can be no conversation on the issues which are bedeviling the world. But let me also make one other specific point, which is the issue of China. In my understanding, it will certainly be an issue at the leaders. India and Russia have a steadfast and old relationship which has stood the test of time. We are bound together in cooperation in critical areas, very important for both. Just as Russia is a superpower and important for India, India is emerging as one of the largest players in the world and important for Russia as it also finds itself, its place in the world where a lot of people in the Western world are pointing fingers at it. The question of the Russian relationship with China and the fact that it shouldn't have any impact on the India-Russia relationship, and more than that, in terms of any kind of influencing the India-Russia relationship, I think would be particularly important, and I'm sure it would be raised, and something that the Russians would be really mindful.
Ambassador Puri, one final question on the aspect of people-to-people connect, which forms a bedrock of close ties between nations. What can we expect this time? A short while ago, Prime Minister engaged with the Indian diaspora in Moscow.
I'm very glad that that's such an auspicious way of starting such an engagement. You know, without people being linked, truly, as far as democracies are concerned, things can't go forward. Let's be a little clear about it. Now, India and Russia have old links, but the Russians are quintessentially European. The lean out there is something that is known. But Shubhendu, you're a young man. I belong to a slightly different era of the time of Raj Kapoor films in Moscow, where, Meri Lal Topi Rusi. That's the kind of stuff. We must engage with the Russians.
Right.
And it's very important to have our people there, their people coming here. I'm glad to see newer Russian companies in areas of technology, Russian banking, etc., opening up their offices in India as the Indian economy grows. But we also need to do things in terms of the cultural connect, whether it's yoga, whether it's dance and music, each of these things. Once upon a time, in about 20 years back, these used to be at a great height. But we need to try and take these back again to the same level, given where India is, where Russia is, and the global acceptability of the Indian way of doing things.
Ambassador Puri, thank you for joining us on the News Hour. Always a pleasure having you. India's President and Vice President have condemned the attack on Indian Army personnel. President Murmu has expressed her anguish in a post on X, and I quote, "The attack on a convoy of Army personnel in Kathua district of Jammu and Kashmir by terrorists is a cowardly act that deserves condemnation and firm countermeasures. My sympathies are with families of brave hearts who laid down their lives in this ongoing war against terror in its all forms. I pray for the speedy recovery of those injured." India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also expressed deep anguish over the loss of lives of Indian Army soldiers. The minister asserted that the armed forces are determined to usher in peace in the region. At least 5 army personnel were martyred in a terrorist attack on an army convoy in North India's Jammu and Kashmir. The attack occurred on Monday afternoon when the convoy was on a bridge over a nala in remote Badnota village in Kathua district. Security forces returned fire, but the terrorists fled into the nearby forest. A search operation by security forces is underway in the Macheri area of Kathua. The Indian Met Department has warned of heavy downpours during the day on Tuesday in Karnataka, Goa, Arunachal Pradesh and Maharashtra. The weathermen also issued a red alert for these states today. In addition to this, an orange alert is in place for Assam and Meghalaya. Heavy rain slashed several parts of Indian western state of Maharashtra's Mumbai city on Tuesday. The Met Department issued a high tide alert in Mumbai following incessant heavy rains. Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation has declared a holiday in all schools and colleges in its jurisdiction in view of the heavy rain warning in the region. The decision came after seeing the roads and locality inundated with rainwater. IMD has predicted heavy rains at isolated places in Mumbai till July 12th. And DD India correspondent Shishir Shalar joins us live from Mumbai. Shishir, what is the latest on the weather situation in Mumbai and adjoining areas?
Well, absolutely, Shubhendu. We're talking about the yesterday situation. Yesterday, Mumbai and adjoining area of Mumbai and some coastal part of Maharashtra has received a very heavy rainfall, resulting in a waterlogging at various locations in Mumbai as well. Well, the authorities swung into action, have taken a lot of measures in order to give relief to the people. But obviously, since yesterday, much has happened so far. Now the normalcy has returned to Mumbai, obviously, because yesterday the Mumbai has witnessed almost 300 millimeter of rainfall. The normal rainfall ranges between 65 millimeter, but yesterday's the rainfall which has been recorded by the IMD, which is much higher, and that's the reason we have seen the waterlogged situation in many low-lying areas in Mumbai and adjoining areas. Well, that's the reason the Municipal Corporation of Mumbai, along with the state government and the State Disaster Relief Force, have swung into action and have taken various steps to give relief as far as the setting up pumping station at various low-lying areas. Also, at the same time, we have seen that the local train have disrupted at various locations here. So the railway department has also identified those areas, and now the pumping stations has been installed at all those places. So that even heavy rainfall occurs in Mumbai, there won't be a same kind of situation. Well, as far as today's situation is concerned, obviously the IMD has issued a red alert to Mumbai district, also along with Thane and the coastal region of the entire Maharashtra, that includes Ratnagiri and Sindhudurga. The IMD has predicted yesterday that the next 8 hours probably is quite crucial for all these regions. But so far, since morning, Mumbai hasn't received any rainfall. The situation is quite cloudy in this entire region here. Well, keeping the red alert in mind, the schools have been given the holiday today in the entire Maharashtra, not the Maharashtra, but the Konkan region and the Mumbai region as well. And the authority is now keeping very close tab on the situation occurs in Mumbai as well.
Shishir, thank you for those updates. Meanwhile, drizzling continues in India's western coastal state of Gujarat. Significant amount of rain has been recorded in the southern region of the state. IMD has issued orange alert in such districts, as well as yellow alert is issued in parts of central Gujarat such as Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, Mehsana, Patan and others. Several parts of the national capital experienced heavy rainfall on Tuesday, offering a much-needed relief from the sweltering humidity and heat. Moderate to heavy rains are expected as per India Met Department during the day. The weather over the week is expected to bring a mix of cloudy skies and intermittent rain showers. Let's take a look at what else is making news in India. In a move to empower women in rural areas of India's Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the State Bank of India and Rural Development and Training Institute organized a free 30-day tailoring and cutting course and other occupational courses to make them self-reliant. Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI, has notified amendments to the regulatory framework for broadcasting and cable services and releases. TRAI has removed the ceiling on network capacity fee, which will now be driven by market forces. In order to ensure transparency, the charges have to be mandatorily published by service providers and communicated to consumers, which will further facilitate the growth of the broadcasting sector and promote ease of doing business by simplifying regulatory provisions. Lavender cultivation is not only transforming the agriculture landscape of Doda in Jammu and Kashmir, but also drawing the region's women and youth towards farming. The shift marks a significant change as people increasingly choose farming over traditional jobs, finding new opportunities and financial stability in lavender farming. In the US, at least 3 people have died in Texas as Hurricane Beryl plummeted the Gulf Coast on Monday, including a police officer on his way to work. Beryl brought heavy rains, damaging winds and life-threatening storms surged the state and left more than 2 million customers without power. Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
Now that Beryl is tracking north, officials along the Gulf Coast can really start to assess how extensive the damage is. The storm brought torrential rain to the Houston area, 25 centimeters falling in some areas, which is more than a month's worth of rain. And this was compounded by dangerous storm surge, strong winds bringing that ocean water right on shore. And in fact, near the port of Houston, the water level swelled to more than 3 meters above normal. Only the second time that has happened. And streets were completely flooded, homes were flooded as well, and a number of people had to be rescued. When Beryl hit the Gulf Coast early on Monday morning, it was a Category 1 hurricane with wind gusts of up to 150 kilometers per hour. This brought down power lines and trees. At least 2 people were killed in separate incidents when trees fell through their homes as they were trying to ride the storm out. Other injuries have also been reported, but really of paramount importance right now is restoring power. This is crucial for health and safety, especially in the summer heat. Temperatures in Houston are forecast to reach the mid-30s this week, which could pose a new danger to residents. Beryl is now making its way north as a much weaker storm, but it is just the first in what meteorologists are expecting to be an extraordinary hurricane season. They are predicting up to 13 Atlantic hurricanes this year as water temperatures sit at record highs. Tony Waterman in Austin, Texas, reporting for DD India. And still to come on DD India News Hour.
Indian shooter Gagan Narang to be India's chef de mission for Paris Olympics after Maricom steps down. In tennis, Novak Djokovic advances to Wimbledon Open quarterfinals. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. India's benchmark equity indices opened on Tuesday's trading session in positive territory. Sensex is up by 300 points at 80,260, while Nifty 50 is above 24,380 till 1 p.m. Wall Street ended mixed on Monday as investors awaited fresh inflation data. Traders will scrutinize consumer price data due on Thursday and producers' price data expected on Friday to gauge the Fed's progress in fighting inflation. The Ministry of Economic Affairs of Taiwan has organized Taiwan Expo 2024 in New Delhi. The three-day event is being held from 8th to 10th of July. Three-day expo features world-class innovations and cutting-edge technologies from Taiwan spanning various sectors. Among the highlights is the Taiwan Excellence Pavilion, where 24 renowned brands are presenting their latest products and solutions. It stands as a testament to Taiwan's commitment to excellence and innovation, also provides a platform to strengthen enduring ties between India and Taiwan. Sri Lanka's state-owned enterprises restructuring unit has announced that 8 parties have qualified to bid for Litro Gas Lanka and Litro Terminals Limited. The bidders also include Bharat Petroleum Corporation, among others. Litro holds the largest market share in Sri Lanka's duopoly LPG market that is mostly focused on domestic gas supplies. And now let's turn to all the sporting action. Recounting India's victory in the T20 World Cup, Prime Minister Modi said Indian athletes would perform exceedingly well at the upcoming Paris Olympics as well.
आपने भी हाल में T20 वर्ल्ड कप में और मुझे पक्का विश्वास है यहां भी आपने उस विक्ट्री को सेलिब्रेट किया ही होगा। इस बार पेरिस ओलंपिक में भी भारत की तरफ से एक शानदार टीम भेजी जा रही है। आप देखिएगा पूरी टीम, सारे एथलीट्स कैसे अपना दम दिखाएंगे। भारत की युवा शक्ति का यही आत्मविश्वास भारत की असली पूंजी है।
Indian shooter Gagan Narang will be India's chef de mission for the Paris Olympics after Maricom stepped down from the role due to personal reasons. The updates are coming in. Narang's elevation from deputy chef de mission position was an automatic choice following Maricom's resignation. The 41-year-old is 4-time Olympian and he won bronze medal in men's 10-meter air rifle event in 2012 Olympics. It is the duty of chef de mission to maintain a diplomatic stance and help resolve the issues. Meanwhile, a 2-time Olympic medal winner PV Sindhu will be the flag bearer for India along with table tennis star A. Sharat Kamal. Paris Olympics will be held from 26th July to 11th August. The ongoing European Championship comes to its final stages as 3-times winner Spain will take on France in the Euro 2024 semi-finals tonight in Munich. Both the past 2 explosive tournament matches between Spain and France have distinctly felt like a battle for the very soul of football was taking place. It will be no different when they meet tonight. However, goal-shy France will be looking to silence the critics as they have come under fire from fans for a string of unimpressive performances, having reached the last four without scoring a single goal in open play. Meanwhile, their opponents will hope to keep their impressive campaign going, even without midfielder Pedri and Dani Carvajal. Novak Djokovic produced his best display so far at this year's Wimbledon to dispatch Denmark's Holger Rune 6-3, 6-4, 6-2 and reach the quarterfinals for the 15th time on Monday. 37-year-old Serb was clinical throughout and won the opening 12 points of his centre court clash against Holger Rune. Apart from minor blip at the end of the second set, Djokovic is bidding to match Roger Federer's 8 Wimbledon titles. He will contest his record extending 60th Grand Slam quarterfinal against Australia's Alex de Minaur on Wednesday. NATO's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg threw the ceremonial first pitch for the Washington Nationals baseball team on Monday, a light-hearted moment ahead of the NATO meetings in Washington this week. Leaders of NATO's 32-member countries are traveling to the US on the 75th anniversary of the Transatlantic Security Alliance, with further support for Ukraine in the war against Russia's invasion high on their agenda. Baseball has long been known as America's national pastime, and although other sports are now boasting of more spectators, it continues to draw millions of people to ballparks around the country every year. Embassy of France in India, Embassy organized a high-level conference on India's preparation for Paris 2024 Olympic Games with the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry on Monday in New Delhi. DD India's Deepika Mato gets us more.
With less than a month to the year's mega global sports event, Paris Olympics 2024, Embassy of France in India organized a high-level conference on India's preparation for Paris 2024 Olympic Games with the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry on Monday in New Delhi. Speaking on the occasion, Thierry Mathieu, Ambassador of France to India, said that not only India and France are fostering relationship in sports sector with having events spread across India for the upcoming Olympics event, but France is also going to create many records at the upcoming Olympics.
I'm sure that this new MOU will add a new dimension in the bilateral interaction and cooperation between France and India.
Speaking about how France is gearing up for the mega event, India's first Olympic gold medalist Abhinav Bindra said that Olympics in France is going to be a visual spectacle.
I think the Paris Games are going to be a visual spectacle. I mean, just the sporting venues at the backdrop of these iconic venues, I think it's going to be a feast for the eyes. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. The games are going to be much more youthful, much more vibrant with the inclusion of many urban sports.
France as a nation is focusing on innovation, sustainability and inclusivity as the main pillars of global games. As per its innovative effort, for the first time, the opening ceremony will take place at Seine River. 4 new disciplines will be there, including climbing, surfing and skateboarding. It is also going to be the most eco-friendly and green games. France is also aiming to achieve gender equality, which is on top of its diplomatic agenda. A special summit is also to be organized on the eve of the opening ceremony on sports and its sustainable development goals, or the SDGs. There will be one common logo for Paralympics and Olympics as well across the same venue. 90% of the venues will be used for the competition, turning the entire city into an Olympics venue. So one can also attend the opening ceremony at different fan zones spread across India, which are being set up by the Embassy of France in India. So with all eyes on the upcoming Olympics, the hope of getting more number of gold medals increases day by day as we look at the preparations in run-up to Paris Olympics 2024. Deepika Mehta's report for DD India.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. You can get all the latest news and updates on DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan this QR code on your screens to download it now. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in New Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.